everyone, this is Lindsay, the Tiny Home Lady, and I'm so excited you could join us for this webinar where we are going to be featuring the new Colorado tiny home friendly law. And we're going to be bringing Tracy Manchego-Baker with Tiny Building Experts up here in a moment. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. It really breaks down to the three components: thanking our sponsors, talking about the new Colorado tiny friendly law with Tracy Manchego-Baker with Tiny Building Experts. That law just passed on July 1st, so we're going to learn all about it from Tracy. And then we're going to do a Q&A. And so let's get right into thanking our sponsors. We want to start with Gold Heat, electric radiant floor heating. Imagine warming your body from the floor to the core. Univix, solar components for the off-grid tiny home, providing batteries, inverters, charge controllers, and flexible solar panels. Use code GOTINY10 for 10% off. Pacific West Tiny Homes, certifying to NFPA 1192 and ANSI A119.5 RV building standards. Natureloo, your sleek design 100% compost toilet. Natureloo based out of New Zealand. Precision Temp on-demand hot water heaters. Enter Tiny100 for $100 off and make sure your hot water is hot when you need it. The Tiny Home Industry Association, responsible for legalizing movable tiny homes across the country, including what we're about to discuss with the new Colorado Tiny Friendly Law. Become a member of THIA and support the growth of the tiny home industry. American Tiny House Association is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on development and educating people about tiny homes. Contractor Dave, focusing on getting you the information you need about your land. Maybe it's land you own or land you're looking to own. Make sure that you have all the information you need with the comprehensive property report. Go Tiny Academy, focused on the three pillars of going tiny: land, finance, and build. 3 training tracks available, from course to land to develop, $197 to $997. Join the Go Tiny Academy, guiding you home. And finally, I want to welcome all of you to schedule a 15-minute tiny home discovery call with myself. This gets us a chance to get to know a little bit more about your tiny home goals, where you're going to place it, what your budget is, who you're thinking about as a builder. And in regards to Colorado, who you're thinking about as a builder is very important because everything just changed. So we're going to hear a little bit more about all of that next. So schedule your call and look forward to seeing you there. And now I'm so excited to introduce to you all Tracy Manchego-Baker from Tiny Building Experts. Tracy and I actually met each other from an interesting call. Backing up a little bit, 2017, we had our epiphany to go tiny. We were living in Marin County. Everything was very expensive, and we thought tiny home would be the best route. We flew to our very first tiny home festival in Arlington, Texas in 2017, and we met our builder there. 6 months later, we got a call from our builder saying they were going out of business. We had to pick up our tiny home and finish our own home. So fast forward 8 months into that journey, when we had actually finished our home, we were on the road within day 2 of our travel, and we weighed our tiny home, and we thought now would be a good time to call the number on the side of our home, which was Trailer Made Trailers. And we ended up calling the 303 number and got Tracy on the phone. And lo and behold, what we found there was a bit unfortunate, but Tracy was wonderful to be able to guide us through the process. And we have become wonderful friends, and most recently being a part of their Tiny Building Expert family, and the Go Tiny Showcase being the entryway at both the Colorado Tiny House Festival and the People's Tiny House Festival. So Tracy Manchego, we're so happy to have you here to share with us all that you know about the new Colorado Tiny Friendly Law.
So thanks everybody for joining us today. Hopefully I have an opportunity to meet a lot of you all. I'm Tracy, like Lindsay said, Tiny Building Experts. We're in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My husband is Austin Baker, and Austin Baker has a reputation in the industry for being an amazing, just super ethical, very strong, high quality, high ethic, very high security high safety kind of builder. And for that, I want to say that he's challenged me to learn, right? And so one of the things that I have to say, Linz, is even though there's a lot of us in this industry that have been doing this for a long time, we're learning, every single day, and that's what's turning us into, subject matter experts, where we are able to share that knowledge with other people. So I do have an appreciation for like the Go Tiny Academy and, the industry associations, all of them, because everybody together is kind of working across this country, and that's, I believe, how we're making the impacts in all of the states, like with Colorado and these new laws. I believe that the work that's done all the way from Massachusetts through California, through Washington State, all the way down here through Colorado, I think this is what's helping all of the states make these changes. Plus, we all know that there's an affordable living problem. The states are, coming to terms and understanding that we have an affordable living problem as well. And so with that being said, you're going to see a lot more states starting to adopt opportunities and paths to help you guys place your tiny houses legally. And that was part of what got the bill going here in Colorado, right? It's HB, what is it, 22-1242? I hope I got it right. I'll just say that, for Austin and I, this opportunity to serve on the TAC team with Colorado, when Colorado decided they were going to start regulating our industry, folks, and that we did need to protect consumers, and we also needed a path for local officials within Colorado to allow people like you guys and me place a tiny house legally. It wasn't that local jurisdictions or people within the state didn't want to help us, they just couldn't help us. And it took a while for me to kind of figure that out after going to county after county and working with different parts of the state and the different resources. And there was a very long time where we would go to the building department and we would say, hey, I want to get this house, I'm going to build this tiny house and I want to get it recognized. We're building it to code. And immediately the state of Colorado would tell you that if you were building on wheels in the state of Colorado, it is basically considered an RV. That was the rule. And as soon as you were building an RV or building on wheels, the building department, local jurisdictions, different counties, they couldn't help us because there was nothing written, right? There's no path for them to be able to follow. Every path that they took, it, led them to declining because of the wheels. It was always because of the wheels, you guys. And I think most of you guys that have ever tried to get a tiny house approved, as soon as you said it was the word tiny house or you said it was on wheels, we immediately got shut down, right? Like I saw somebody in the chat say that they're in Woodland Park. Perfect. You're like in my dream area. I've been looking for land in your area all through Woodland Park, Divide. Shoot, I want to move my tiny house company up there. So I've even been looking for a piece of commercial property. So, but there have been rules, right, as far as placing tiny houses legally, and it's been very, very hard. I remember going to Teller County for the first time and saying, hey, we want to put these tiny houses. This customer has all this land and, it's divided into this certain area. It was only 25 feet wide by like 75 feet long, I think. And it made sense. It was right by the high school in Cripple Creek. It made sense to allow people to put these tiny houses. And the city of Cripple Creek was going to allow us to do it. The city had jurisdiction, and then it ended up coming back down to the building departments in Teller County saying, no, we are not going to adopt, Appendix Q, and you can't build on wheels. So why do I bring all of that up, you guys? Because this is what we've all been told for so long. It was always the building department didn't recognize us. It was no because of zoning. Our land wasn't zoned for it. And it was always about, you didn't build it to code, or they just made those assumptions. They just wouldn't entertain us. And so now the state, and again, I believe it had to do with, regulating our industry. Plus, you guys, there are a few bad apples in the bunch. Okay. And I hate to say it, but there are. And, there was a handful of builders that did some things that they shouldn't have done. Right. And the state of Colorado wants to protect you guys as consumers. And I don't blame the state. I have an appreciation for wanting to make sure that all of you consumers are safe. And that you're not being, sold something unethically, or you're not being misled. So I totally am on board with the state as far as the regulation goes, as far as protecting you consumers from builders that don't have your best interest in mind. So I was okay with it from that perspective. I felt like when the state wanted to start changing these rules and writing these laws, I felt like, okay, for those of us builders that are doing it the right way, this shouldn't really affect us. We should be good to go, right? We're going to make a couple of modifications, a couple of adjustments. We're going to follow the state's rules. And, that will help us place more tiny houses legally for our customers, for you guys. So, we're not surprised that the state of Colorado came and said, hey, listen, we're going to protect consumers. We're going to recognize, we want you guys to be building these to code, because that's really, part of the issue as well. Tiny houses are being built by do-it-yourselfers as well as professional builders. You have general contractors that, were building big houses and decided they wanted to start building smaller houses. We also have a lot of remodelers that have entered into our industry, meaning that, these small businesses were doing remodeling and, felt like they wanted to get into the tiny house industry. So when I look at the builders, and you guys, we've got hundreds of builders across the United States now, right? Eric, like, how many builders would you think there is? I think there's about 200 builders, if not maybe 3.
I agree. And
Right.
everyone's in different ranges, smaller, 5 to 10 a year, 10, 20, 30, and then you're getting into more of the 50 to 100. And just so everyone knows, the manufactured home industry could be cranking out like 1,000 a year.
Yeah, they produce like 5 a day, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys are producing like 100 a month. The big Clayton Homes, you know what I mean? Those big guys. A lot of our industry is not that. We are a lot more of the, I always tell everybody, Austin and I are a small mom and pop shop. And I'm okay with that. It allows us to do right by our customers and be closer to our customers. We want to grow, but we also know, growing at the right pace is the right thing to do. And, we've seen it, through other builders, and we just are choosing this path. So I think that, with hundreds and hundreds of builders out there, plus all the DIYers that are building, and you guys all know this. Anybody that knows me, I supported Trailer Made for 4.5 years, and I supported DIYers, right? I mean, Lindsay, that's how I kind of met you, right? Was, hey, my builder went bust. I'm a DIYer now, right? Something similar. And so I've always supported all the DIYers because I believe that the DIYers can build tiny houses. I believe you guys can do it. I believe you guys can do it to code. I believe you guys can do what the builders do. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I believe that DIYers can do it still. And so from that perspective, I was always a big proponent of supporting the DIYer. Okay. Helping them understand that you can go get Pacific West certified, right? Give Alex a call. Tell him Tracy sent you. Give, Nancy or Robin a call from NOAA. Tell them Tracy sent you. Right. If you want to call RVIA and get, get a feel for what they offer. I was always willing to kind of share that knowledge with people of, you can do it too. But then this is kind of what happened, you guys, right? We got all of these people building these tiny houses. And now if you Google the word tiny house, all right, and I'll never forget this because underwriters at banks, as soon as they would Google the word tiny house, and literally an underwriter would see, a homemade tiny house on the back of a truck, right? And we're calling that a tiny house. We call everything a tiny house now. Go on Facebook. Everything's called a tiny house, right? Everybody wants to define it. Everybody wants a definition, right? 400 square feet, 320 square feet, anything 8 wide. the 10 wides are park models, right? And then you see people like having these debates about, well, it has to be under 400 square feet. Well, and then people will chime in and say, well, really anything under 650 square feet. And it's like, okay, guys, let's get to a point where we do define things correctly, right? And Colorado did. Colorado defined a tiny home on wheels. That's what we wrote the new laws for. That's it. We didn't rewrite the code for Appendix Q, meaning you're building a tiny house and it's going on foundation, right? So if you're not building on a chassis, if you're not building on a trailer, you can already build a tiny house on a foundation with Appendix Q. This new law is not for you if you're building on foundation, right? This new law was designed for people that are building on wheels. That's what we defined, was tiny houses on wheels. We didn't redefine RVs. So if you're going to still build, like there's going to be builders in the state of Colorado, and there's going to be many builders in the state of Colorado that are going to stick with just RV certification. And that's okay, as long as you guys as consumers understand what you're purchasing. And I'm going to say that very clearly. If I'm working with a customer and I know that you're going to start out in an RV park, but I know eventually you plan on putting it on some land, you're looking for land, I need to do right by you as that customer. And I need to set you up for success. All right. So yes, you can still have a tiny house built to NFPA 1192, which is RV code. And it'll still be recognized. You can take it to the national park, state parks, whatever. You'll have your little certification that says you met over 500 different codes for electrical, plumbing, safety, all of that. Electrical, wire, plumbing, all of it. You can work with Alex at PacWest, or you can work with Robin and Nancy at NOAA, or you can call RVIA, and you can still get that certification. But your tiny house is an RV. It is a tiny house RV. That is how Colorado is classifying if you're building to that code. If you're going to build to ANSI 119.5, which is park model RV code, still park model RV code, ANSI 119.5, NOAA. So you can call Robin and Nancy over at NOAA, or you can call Alex at Pacific West or RVIA, and you can still get your tiny house certified as an ANSI registered tiny home. None of that is changing with this new law. Okay. Lindsay, I have a customer coming up in the build schedule that she's going to be built to ANSI 119.5. Okay. She's got like a 34-foot by 10-foot coming into the shop. But I also know that she's going to move to some lands. She's either going to Texas, she's going to go to Florida. But how do I know? What if she ends up with land in Colorado?
What if she sells it to someone that could buy it, and then it goes, remember, these things are removable. So snow load there is different than here, and all these different aspects about tiny homes.
It's really going to come down to a couple of things, and we've already been talking about it. And we had a meeting with the state of Colorado today, you guys. We did Zooms this morning. Okay. It was this morning, the state of Colorado came on and we met. I co-hosted with Sam, who's the director of DOLA, Department of Local Affairs. And if you guys go on to our Facebook page at Tiny Building Experts, yesterday I posted all of the resources available to all of you that are ever planning on building a tiny house. If you're a builder and you're going to build a tiny house and you plan on selling it, you need to follow these rules. And they're posted on our website. If you are a DIYer and you plan on building your own tiny house, you need to follow these rules, right? It's the same thing. You don't have to become a seller like I do, right? Like I had to fill out the application to be a factory built manufacturer, but I also had to fill out the application to be a seller as well, because we don't just build them, we also sell them to you guys. Whereas if you're a DIYer, you don't have to worry about the seller part, right? Because you built it for yourself. So, but you still have to follow the rules. The rules are still there. So you can find that on our Facebook page at Tiny Building Experts. I've listed the email addresses. I listed the website where you guys can find more answers if you want to do more of a deep dive into the code. What are the requirements, things of that nature, costs. I'm just now going through the process myself. I've told everybody, you know, I feel a little bit like a guinea pig, and that's okay. But as all of us are going through this process and submitting our houses to the state and getting them stamped and approved, and we need to give them feedback because we need to make this path better for us. And I'm trying to encourage all the builders, and I keep saying this, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say it again. If you're a builder, please give the state feedback on the forms, on the process, on all of that. I'm going to be doing that as I go through it, but I want them to hear feedback from other people, not just Tracy.
I just put in the chat that whole Facebook post, because I know not everyone's on Facebook, where I did a pretty good job of just taking your
Perfect.
thing and then giving spaces.
Copy and paste it. Perfect. That's a little bit about code. So we didn't change RVs, right? We didn't change builders that are going to just keep building to RVs. That's what they're going to do. But if you ever plan on putting it on a piece of land, that house is not going to pass. Not if you built it to RV code, right? You're going to have to build it to 2018 IRC. That is what we wrote the code against, you guys. It's 2018 IRC, Appendix Q, and I believe AQ as well. Plus there's some adjustments that we made. For example, instead of needing, I think it was an R40 in the roof. I don't think it was an R60, but we got it approved to where you only needed to do an R30, right? So it's going to be one of those amendments or those addendums into code, because you'll see 2018 or whatever say, you know, R40, but we did put an addendum to get it to our R30. So there's a
you're so amazing at knowing these R values. Just to break that down in layman's term, what does that do to my loft if I have an R40?
You would be kissing the roof with your lips if you laid on a mattress. Okay. And so overall, I'm going to say this. And if there's anybody on this call today from the state, I'm just going to say it. And I said it, you know, to Sam today and to everybody today. I don't think we got it 100% right. I am struggling with IRC egress in houses like this, Lens, right? When you have a gable roof, I have to have enough roof pitch so the snow slides off. Plus we're using metal standing seam, right? Because we don't use shingles because they fly off. Okay. And so you have to have certain roof pitches when you use metal, right? And if you ever plan on putting on a skylight, you have to have a minimum of a 312 pitch with metal. Otherwise you can't, it won't be warranted or whatever. So what we're doing here is my biggest issue that I don't feel like we did a good job on was once you have to have a header above those windows, you guys. And once you mathematically calculate the height right here from underneath the loft, because there's code, right? I think it's, ooh, I hope you guys don't quote me on this. 6 feet 6 inches underneath the 4x4, it lands at 6'2" underneath the 4x4. So I think your loft or your ceiling floor has to be somewhere in that range, right? Well, if I'm 13 feet 6 tall, my trailer is 24 inches from the ground to the top of the deck. I lost 2 feet, right? So now I'm really playing with 11 feet 6 inches. But then right here, I had this loft. So it's really, I'm running into the problem, not for egress for IRC, I mean, NFPA, RV code, and I'm not having a problem with ANSI. I don't have a problem with that. On what I'm struggling with, and that I'm going to be talking to the state about, is I'm struggling with an egress window with the right pitch, with the right R30 in the roof, because I'm probably going to have to go to 2x6 roof. I already do a 4x8 ridge beam. Austin does, I should say. So our team already does equivalent to a 4x8 ridge beam for structure. But now we're not going to be able to do like a 2x4 rafter. We're going to end up having to do a 2x6. And that's also, I can get an extra R4 and R value. And for what? It was really a checkbox because this house heats up and cools down in minutes. I just turned the air conditioning off because it was freezing in here. Okay. And so my struggle with the state was getting them to recognize the codes for big houses aren't quite as need to be as hardcore for little houses.
Mhm.
There was nothing about structural integrity for the R value in the roof. Nothing. It had nothing to do with structure, you guys. It was just an extra like R3 that we were missing with our standard methodology. So it was like, okay, so now we got to charge our customers for more insulation. That's not really adding a ton of value because once you do so many inches, you guys, you start losing R value per inch after like 5 inches or 6 inches. Okay. If I'm already feeling everything, I mean, this house is warm. This house is cold or it's warm, depending upon that AC or that heater. And that was really what, was a struggle to get Colorado to recognize. So I'll say, I don't feel like we won with the egress windows. We're having a hard time because you got to have headers above windows. That's structural, and we're not going to jeopardize structural. Okay. So I'm being kind of pinned into a corner in a certain tiny house I'm building where I'm going to have to put an egress skylight in. And I don't want to. I don't like operable skylights because they actually have a probability of leaking. I'm okay with skylights. There's a skylight right there. That's mine, right? I'm okay with it. But that's a non-operable skylight.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that we're going to install it incorrectly. We just know with snow and other things, you have a higher probability of ever having a leak if you have an operable skylight. I don't want to have to be forced to do a decision like that because I need to prep my customer for Colorado code because he doesn't know where she's going with his house. Right? But that's kind of where we're at. So I will say that designing has been super duper hard right now because you don't really have a whole lot of walls to put that thing. It's a breaker panel that's got to have proper clearances. Anybody that puts their breaker panels in a bathroom, that doesn't work. It worked in RV code because you could use a wet box, but it doesn't work in IRC. Okay, so there's certain things that used to work for us with NFPA 1192 for RV code that is not going to work. Locations of breaker panels are a big one. Roof pitch, snow load, insulation value. Those are all my pains right now. That's where it's painful.
What about windows? I know in tiny homes, we want more windows. Do they have any kind of, well, there's the wall that's the R value, and then there's a giant picturesque window that's 6 foot long and takes over half the wall.
Yeah. So that's the crazy thing too, right? Windows, okay, so let's talk about this for a second. And it's kind of complicated, so I'm going to try to do a good job with this, okay? Sometimes, like in the state of Colorado, you can either build to specific rules or you could build to performance. There's like performance and prescriptive, okay? If I build my whole tiny house and I don't want to make those adjustments with, let's say, 2x6 roof rafters to get that R30, I can keep building the way I'm building right now, only because I've already passed the prescriptive performance. So while I'm making a big deal out of the extra R4 in the roof, because of the way the way he builds, and because he uses a double pane window like most other people, you go for a good quality window. You can't buy cheap windows or you're not going to meet the performance. Okay. If you want to meet the performance methods, you have to be using nice, high quality windows. You will never meet Colorado code without closed cell spray foam. If you are doing any other type of insulation, I don't care. You could be using rock wool. You could be using Havelock wool. You could be using bat insulation. You could be using 2-inch rigid foam boards. I don't care. Colorado doesn't care. The only way you're going to meet code now in the state of Colorado for the R values that we have to meet in the roof, in the walls, and in the floor is through closed cell spray foam. That's it. Now, there is another way, Linz, but we don't want to sacrifice to meet it. Meaning I would have to lower my house by a few inches, give up the loft inches, right? I would have to 2x6, make my house heavier, make my roof a little bit heavier by going with 2x6 rafters instead of 2x4s, right? So there's a few things that I would have to do to increase my R value without going to 2x6. Like I could add R value zip system. Okay, so I can go gain that extra 4 R value if I want to, Lindsay. I can. I gotta like subtract the height from my house though to be able to add those few extra inches, because right, we're not supposed to go above 13 feet 6 inches tall according to Department of Transportation nationwide. Now, maybe you're going to convince me as your Colorado customer, Tracy. I'm never going to leave Colorado. So it says that we could go to 14 feet. And I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. You can have 14 feet. No problem. But understand, Department of Transportation nationwide requires you now to pull a permit, right?
Yeah.
To be able to transport that. You have to account for low hanging wires, low hanging trees, and low bridges.
Bridges.
Okay. Bridges. Otherwise, you're going to rip your roof off. So, maybe you're going to convince me that, hey, Tracy, I'm just going to park it on some land and I'm never going to leave it, right? Like Mariana, we know that you're going to put it in the backyard, my friend, and you're not going to leave it, and you don't need a loft. So main level living was perfect for you. So for some people, there's ways to work through this, but for other people, and I'm only bringing up this house, it's a small, tiny house with a sleeping loft that has a gable pitch because it gives us the most headroom. That's why that is so popular. That right there is so popular in a lot of tiny houses because it gives you the vaulted space, right? So that's just a little bit about some of those changes.
We had 2 people respond. I asked them, put in a D or an L. If you're a D, you want a downstairs bedroom. If you're an L, you want a loft. And you can still have a downstairs bedroom, or yeah, there we go, D and L. All right, people, this is good. Good to get response, because for those of you that do want the downstairs, there may be some design opportunities that you will be able to work with other than those with the lofts.
Yeah. So yes. Yeah. I was looking at some of the chat too, Linz, and there's some tough questions in there. I'm going to bring it up because it was brought up on the builder call with the state this morning. Okay. And I think you guys can access that call because they recorded it. And then Sam is really good about posting those calls. So those of you guys that didn't get to hear it can probably go and listen to it. If you're building a tiny house right now and your builder is not a Colorado state certified builder, and you're planning on putting that tiny house here in Colorado, I don't want to say this to you guys, but I'm going to, because this is what the state told me to say today. You probably want to reach out to the state of Colorado because there's a very high probability that that house will not pass the certifications here in Colorado unless your builder is following these rules. If you're building your house right now, or you have a builder that is not a state certified Colorado builder, and they're building, and you're going to place this house, I don't care if it's going on private land, if it's going on your land, friend's land, you want your builder to follow these rules because the state of Colorado is going to be in charge of letting you know if you're going to be allowed to live in it full time. If you do not have it built by a state certified builder, or they can be an out-of-state builder, you guys, they just got to follow these laws and they have to follow these rules. They have to follow the same rules I do. They need to go get the surety bond. They need to go and do the Attorney General account. They need to go and sign up, pay their registration fee, fill out the application. They need to follow all the same rules that we're following. So if you have a builder that's building your house and they're out of the state, I'm not saying you can't have them build your house. You can. They just need to follow the same rules. And that is what Colorado told me today, because when I was at the Colorado Tiny House Festival, as well as the People's Tiny House Festival, one of the things that was brought up from folks in the audience was, hey, I have a tiny house. It was built in Tennessee. And this was a real live example. She said, hey, my mom's having had a tiny house built by this builder, and it's in Tennessee. And she's getting ready to move to Colorado, and she wants to bring her tiny house, but she's worried that with these new laws that she won't be able to, place this tiny house here legally. And I said, there's going to be a path for people. It's not going to be grandfathered. They're not going to grandfather. Like, I don't get to go and take houses that I built to NFPA and have them grandfathered, and now they're just allowed. Okay. Unfortunately, they just don't. But what they are saying is there's going to be a path for these people to make corrections to their home. Some of them aren't going to be able to make corrections, right? I mean, I don't know how you're going to, rebuilding framing for your roof for snow load is going to be very difficult and expensive to do. At that point, some people may end up selling their houses and rebuilding for Colorado. And that's crazy. And I don't want to say that. I really don't. But that's what the state said today. So they said, reach out to them, that they're in charge, right? They will answer all of your guys' questions. If you have a tiny house right now and it's being built outside of the state, or it was already built out of the side of the state and you want to bring it to Colorado, you can reach out to Donnie. You can reach out to Christina. Those are the main 2 point of contacts. I gave you guys their email addresses. Reach out to them and they will answer your guys' questions, and they will give you a path to be able to create, to see if you're going to be able to make the corrections, right? Let's say you're missing an egress window. I don't want to cut out, fix that problem in framing and have to cut out your siding and stuff like that, but can it be fixed? Yeah. Would it be easier and cheaper for me to fix your egress window as a tiny house builder than rebuild your whole house for you? Yeah, right. So there's going to be some fixes that people will be able to do, Lindsay, that I think that they'll survive. It's usually going to be around egress windows, because that's where people mess up all the time. Even builders do. They don't get it right. Okay. I know they don't, because I see it, right? It's, even though we all thought, oh, 24/17, that was clear opening. There's no way you're getting that in a 24/18 window. Like, you literally need to be using a 36/30 or a 30/30 window to get it, or a 30/24. That's what gets you to 24/17, right? But people didn't know that. So there's a lot of mistakes that people built their houses with not proper egress windows. I think those can be fixed, because you can also buy special hardware, ladies. For those of you guys that don't know this, you can buy special hardware to change the way your window opens. Okay. Most windows can. I can't say all, right? But there is a way to help you make sure that you have the right egress windows. As far as snow load goes, I don't know how people are going to fix that, right? Like, I'm not a structural engineer, so I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Like, we account for the snow load in framing. Right. So I don't know if you had a house built in Tennessee that doesn't handle snow load. I don't know how that's going to go here. But if it's something like an egress window, or maybe you didn't have a grounding copper wire, or maybe you didn't have a VTR, vent through the roof, and we can get a vent through and protrude and do it safely, then you might be able to make those corrections to your house and be okay. But you're going to have to work with the state.
How many here don't have a home yet and they're looking to buy? Just say to buy, the number 2, BUY, because that'd be interesting to know for anyone that she's, talking about ones that already own their home. That's what I thought. A lot of people to buy. So what's great about you is you get to start from the get-go, knowing the right builder. I have to say, Tiny Building Experts definitely has a really good handle on this. And tell us a little bit more, Tracy, about, there's your home. For those of you that were in Colorado and Peoples, I know there's a lot of people here that weren't necessarily there. We got to tour your own family's toy hauler, but you guys design a range of homes, and obviously now you're designing with the Colorado rules in mind. Do you do custom homes from scratch?
So we do. We offer custom houses as well as models.
Okay.
So we do both. We go through a very thorough consultation process because we really need to understand how you're using the house. We'll do custom things. Like I have, like Mariana Weeks, you're on here, and she's in a situation where she has a width constraint. She wants to go as wide as she can, but she has a width constraint. I want to build her a 10 wide house, but her and I know we're not going to be able to fit it. So we're probably going to build her a custom 9-foot wide house. Okay. If she decides to go down that path and have a tiny house built and put in the backyard. Now that the new laws enter effect, I think it'll speed things up for her as well as other people. So if you've been stuck in the process for the last couple of months, all of us have been. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you guys right now, things have been a little bit slow the last few months as the state has been getting things kind of set up, announcing, it going into effect. It went into effect July 1st. July 3rd was the first day of business. And today the state did a roundup call with all of the builders, and they invited every single builder. I saw the list. They invited many, many builders, right? And I can say that there are many builders that are not going to go through the certification, and they're going to just stick to doing RVs. And that's okay. But in Colorado, you're only going to be able to live in an RV where? In an RV park. So if you build a tiny house and you know that it's RV certified, it's okay. But if you don't build it to the state specifications, you will be in an RV park. That's where you're going to be allowed.
So I just saw a great question, and I think this is a really good time. One of the things that I love teaching people about is there's building standard. That is the standard for which the home is built to. We've mentioned RV standard, NFPA, ANSI. There's also IRC and HUD. There's a lot of acronyms. I can put them in the chat as a summary. And then we put our hand like this. This is the zoning law. So building standards has to do with the structure. Zoning law is everything to do with the land, what is allowed and not allowed on the land, how your land is zoned. So one of the questions was, has law changed in Colorado as far as zoning goes?
So a little bit, Mariana, and I was actually thinking about you the other day as I was learning about this. I will reach out to you just because, you're my friend, and I'm glad that you joined today. But you and I, we're neighbors. Her and I are by each other, and she's a customer that we've, kind of been working with. But I believe, Mariana, with the new zoning stuff, it is helping a little bit. There is being some new words that are being written for zoning that is starting to make local zoning officials in Colorado. There's some more flex zoning areas. Okay. So is it making it easier? When I get a tiny house placed legally, then I'll be able to say, yes, it's making it easier. But I'm going through the process, right? Mariana, if you continue through the process, you'll probably be one of the first ones. There's about 3 or 4 of you guys that I know of in Colorado that are starting to work through the process. There's a couple of questions in your chat, Linz. They talked about like, hey, should I have a tiny house built in Canada and bring it to Colorado? Canada rules are different from rules in the US. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's even Canadian VIN numbers. Like if I build for a customer and I know they're going to Canada, then I will request a Canadian VIN for their trailer because I know that I can't use a US VIN for their trailer, right? So there are differences between Canada and the US. Would I recommend having something built in Canada and brought to the US? I'm thinking it's going to be just as hard. Unless that Canada builder follows these rules. If they follow the rules, right, now there's rules to follow. Now there is a path that they can take. So I'm not saying, so if the Canada builder gets Colorado certified, then great. Then you should be safe because that means they know what they're doing and they're going to be building it to the code that they need to. Zoning is getting better. Zoning's getting better, you guys, but until I see it, meaning successfully, like, hey, wow, we just got like 2 or 3 houses placed in the last, I don't even care if it takes us 6 months. Like, I just want to see them placed legally right now. So hopefully, Mariana, it's going to get easier.
Did you call out the difference of tiny home and tiny house as defined by Colorado?
So I did. I'm getting in the habit of saying tiny home on a chassis. Tiny home on wheels, tiny home on a chassis. That is how Colorado defined it, right? We are a tiny home on a chassis. Permanent chassis, meaning not detachable. It means that the tiny house is fixed to the trailer permanently.
Well, wait, can't we just take the wheels off and then it changes everything and I can do it legally?
Oh, plans. So at that point, just build it on foundation. But yes, you can. You can take the tiny house. You can take the wheels off the trailer. You can block it like a foundation. That's not a problem. You can do that. And the state of Colorado will like you for doing that. That's where you will follow the local jurisdiction's rules as far as how you install that tiny house, which is probably a good segue. Are you ready, Linz? I want to teach these 3 points, and I know we're coming up on time.
Yep.
So 3 rules, you guys. Really, really, really simple here, okay? 1, build your tiny house to code. 2018 IRC. Or have a builder that is Colorado State certified build your tiny house for you. Okay, that's number 1. You can reach out to tiny building experts. Feel free to reach out to us. We have our application in, it's being submitted. We will be a Colorado State certified builder. Number 2, you have to tie into the utilities correctly. That means you need to tie into the plumbing, the electrical. They care about the plumbing, you guys. They want to know that you got a septic set up. They want to know when you flush that it's going somewhere. Okay, that's the truth. That's what Colorado cares about. They want to know that you have, water. Some areas, they know that we're buying land. Like, for example, Rainbow Valley up in like the Woodland Park Divide area. Everybody has water cisterns out there, right? And then we use a water delivery service. So we have, 1,000-gallon water cistern and water gets delivered. That's okay. They're cool with all of that because we're following the rules. We're tying into the utilities correctly. Okay. And then the third thing is that you have to have your tiny house placed by a professional installer. On the Department of Housing website, on those links that are on our Facebook page, if you click on that and you go, and you could even type it in because I've already done this. It's like Colorado State Certified Installer or Manufactured Home Installer. It's going to pop up a whole list of installers that are certified in the state. Unfortunately, a lot of them aren't doing business anymore, or they're not doing it anymore. So there might be like 300 names, but you're probably going to find maybe 100 of them across the state that are still doing it. And I noticed there's usually a couple of them in each area. Like when I was looking for a professional installer in Durango, I found, after I dwindled through a list of like 7, I found like 2 or 3 guys that are still doing it. And when I brought it up to one guy, he was like, well, haven't you called so-and-so already? And I was like, no, not yet. He goes, well, you're going to end up calling him. He's closer. And I was like, okay. So then I called the other guy and he was like, yeah, I'm closer. I'll do it. Right. And so I learned that they really do operate more like geographical. Somebody from Durango is not going to come to Colorado Springs and install. We already have a handful of installers here. You're going to use somebody here. Make sense? If you're in Greeley, look for an installer over there. There's 2 or 3 of them out over on that side. If you're in Durango, pick one from over there. If you're in Colorado Springs, pick one from there. There's a few in Pueblo. There's a few in Colorado Springs. There's several in Denver. There are a lot of them listed, but you do have to have a professional installer install it. Now, there is an exception to this. As a homeowner, you can install your own unit. So what does that mean for me as a tiny houser? I'm going to go take my electrical cord and I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to take my water hose and I'm going to screw that on. And then I'm going to take my septic and I'm going to connect it. I'm going to put my jacks down. My wheels are going to be on something solid because I'm super smart and I know that I'm not supposed to have my wheels touching dirt. I'm going to have concrete pad. I'm going to have wood. I'm going to have pavers, cement. I'm going to have something underneath my tires, right? So I can technically do this install myself as a homeowner, as long as I follow what the local jurisdiction is telling me how I have to install it. So if I'm installing it in my backyard and the installer says, hey, you can do all of this, but you need a breezeway, like they're telling Mariana and I, then we're probably going to have a breezeway connecting her tiny house to her main house, right? What did Brad saying? There's three types of
yeah, professionals. And I do want to touch on two super important questions because I get this all the time. The first is any special rules on Colorado for totally off-grid on my own land? And let me give you the second one, which relates, can you use a compostable toilet? So usually solar and composting toilets and all those kind of questions come in together with the whole off-grid. And I get the direction of this is to save money from having to do septic and electrical systems, but
so solar, I think Colorado is welcoming. Okay. I feel like solar, the local jurisdictions are welcoming us with that approach. Having water delivered, having a water cistern. I feel like they're very acknowledging of that, right? Some of the land that we have, like in Hartselle and some of the areas where there's plenty of it, right? It's because it's off grid. That's why it's so cheap, right? It's off grid and you know, that's just kind of what we've experienced with that area. So solar, not so much a big deal, but you guys, they want flushing toilets. They don't want compost toilets because on most, now I'm not going to say that for everywhere, okay? Because there is some areas that will allow you to compost if you work with your local county. I have a lady in Calhan who's composting, and they came out and they inspected that she had a composting box. So she had to build a box, right? You can also buy them. They're like, you know, containers that you can go purchase, but she built a box and it's dedicated to compost. And because she did that, they're letting her have those compost toilets out there. But to be fair, she's also not living in those full time. She's renting them. So there's all these little quirky rules. And no matter what, your local jurisdiction is in charge, you guys, no matter what. Now, these new laws are helping us with the local jurisdictions. I have never, so a lot of you guys are probably going, well, what good are these laws if zoning is still in charge? Well, so far zoning seems to be a little bit more, they're listening. They're willing to talk to us now. They understand that there is new laws and that they're learning them and that they are going through a learning process as the state. So I'm kind of proud of them for that they're saying, hey, I'm learning here that these are new laws and that we're going to have to start paying attention to this. So like Mariana, you can attest for this. You and I are smack dab in the middle of the city and we're trying to put a tiny house in your backyard and you're not zoned for it. And we're trying, and zoning allowed you to get through and say, yeah, you can apply for it. Before this law, they wouldn't even talk to me, you guys. They wouldn't even entertain me at zoning. It was just a flat out no. And so now I'm going to say that it's getting easier. It's getting easier to talk to them. They're listening. He brought up the setbacks for Mariana when we talked to him. He said, look, as long as you meet the 10-foot setbacks, which we could, he goes, the only thing that was really sticking us with Mariana's house is that I think we were going to have to put a breezeway in. And it was like, okay, so we're just going to do a little covered breezeway. This is going to give her tiny house, right?
Yay.
That's not a big deal, right? And so, but I wasn't even going to get anywhere with zoning before this bill in that same situation. Solar's being welcomed, but that septic, they're not messing around, you guys. They want that septic. They want you tied in. They want you to tie it into the main house. They want you to dig it. They want something figured out. They mean business with the septic.
And maybe you've got a jurisdiction that's willing to see what you're doing, like the one that you just described, but don't be super surprised If not, someone mentioned incinerating toilets. That's another thing. It all comes back to the jurisdiction. And this has been one of the biggest challenges. I've been doing this, well, Tracy's been doing it a little bit longer than I have, but after our experience and then hitting the road and then starting to help people and guiding them, one of the biggest challenges of like, where am I going to place it? Or I have land and I want to put it somewhere on that land is what's allowed. And most of us never learned about zoning or how to talk to our local planning department unless you're real estate developers or, you know, homeowners that get into a remodel project and you're DIYing that. Most likely it's contractors and developers and all that really know this language. So I did put in a link for the service that we're now offering, which is comprehensive property report by myself and contractor Dave, so that we work with you and the land part so that you're ready for your builder. And so builders don't have to spend all of their time working on the zoning. Isn't that what we talked about at dinner, Tracy? With what you try to help people, but you want to build, right? You're gonna be busy building.
I do, right? Like that's what we love to do. We want to build beautiful houses for people that need homes, and we want to make people's tiny house dreams come true. But at the same time, we've had to learn how to navigate with zoning departments. So will we jump on a call for people? Yeah, we will. Will we participate with you? Yeah. But understand that it's been slow for us here in Colorado the last probably 6 months because of these new laws. Now, all of a sudden, you guys, I'm not kidding you, July 3rd happened, right? Everything went into effect. And now it's like, now I got people with the state putting their hands on my back, right? Like, hey, Tracy, where's your stuff? I'm like, okay, got my trust account set up. Okay, got to get I'm literally having to put the attorney general's name on my bank account, right? And there's things in process that you have to go through. But I'm telling you guys, all of a sudden, it's like, it's time to go fast now. So even though for those of you guys out there that have been trying to navigate for the last 6 months to a year have been a little bit painful, I feel like the education is starting to happen. Colorado is very much putting resources available. They will get on the phone. If we get on the phone with the county and we're helping you and the county is not paying attention, let's say your land allows for the tiny house and the county is just not educated, we have resources now with the state that will get on the phone with your county and educate them. Like the resources, Sam's team, so Donnie, Christina, customer service, all of those folks now are saying, we will get on the phone with local jurisdictions to help you guys if you're having a hard time, navigating the waters, because it is going to take a little bit of an education process. Like you guys, I can't wait to go to Teller County. Like every time I went to Teller County, they would send me this letter that they already had pre-written that says, we don't do tiny houses. We'll never do tiny houses. Don't come at us with your tiny houses. We're not going to accept Appendix Q. We're on 2018. And they just had this letter that it was a canned letter they would just send me. Like, I'm excited to reach out to Teller County now. I have a friend in a tiny house in Teller County now.
That's so great. I love it. And so someone just asked about tiny house communities in the Denver metro area. I love it, right? In my Go Tiny Academy, one of the training tracks is develop. And the whole point is we've attracted people that want to be developers of tiny home communities. And what I can share with you, unless you've ever developed, it takes a very specific timing and understanding. And if you need investors to make your vision happen, then even more need to figure out your pro forma, the land, all the pieces that go into a tiny home community. Now, Tracy's involved in a community called Working Fusion, and we'll be doing a Go Tiny Pro show with Working Fusion. So I'm super excited. So when you see this adorable community that's supporting youth aging out of the foster system, which is so needed, you'll be seeing homes that are built by tiny building experts. Adorable. But I guess maybe the question is really more tiny home communities. So Tracy, do you have any references?
I do.
That have that desire?
I'm not gonna make any friends by answering this way, but I'm gonna answer you guys this way. So they're gonna start popping up a lot more. They're already in the works. They are being developed. They are being developed all across the state. If you look at Durango's on their 3rd community now. I think they're on tiny house community number 3 now just in Durango. Okay. I remember when Bob Lee started that first one, like back in like 2016, 17 or whatever. Now they're literally, I believe, on their third one. Yes. Evans Park in Greeley, Colorado. What's happening, you guys, is a lot of the RV parks are converting to tiny house communities because they were set up for success. So RV parks are allowing tiny houses. Mobile home communities are even allowing tiny houses, especially when they had like a small house and it was a small piece of land, like, and they don't want to put a big double wide or a big, bigger house. They want a tiny house in that mobile home community. So I'm not saying, it's exactly, what our dreams are of to have this, cute little tiny house community with fire pits and picnic tables and laundry stations and, cookout areas. Like that's our dream, right? All of the tiny housers, we want to belong to a community of like-minded people where, you wave at each other, you know what I mean? Or you can go and garden together, or that's what we all want. So yes, the tiny houses are popping up, the communities, I should say. A lot more campgrounds and RV parks are being converted. There's several in the works right now. And then I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, with these new laws, we got some big developers coming in and they're going to be flipping out tiny houses on foundations, and they're going to be lined up. And we're going to try to prevent it as much as we can, especially with zoning. We wrote it into the flex zoning, what will be allowed as far as tiny house communities. So that way we can kind of prevent that. Yeah, like we made it like you can only have like a 4-mile radius and how many houses you can have, in a certain, 4-mile or a 4-acre. I didn't mean mile, 4-acre, space. So I will say that the communities are happening. They're coming. They're popping up. You see a lot of the specialty ones, like the one we did with the foster kids with Shelly's team. But you see the veteran ones. We need some single lady ones. We need some retiree ones too, right? Where, they're just retired folks and they just want to be in a tiny house community. And we need some for females and we need some for kids. And I know a guy that wants to develop one for autistic adults. Mm-hmm. And he wants to let the autistic adults help us build the houses too. So I have a nephew who's autistic and he works for us at the tiny house shop. So we already know it can be done, right? And we're giving other people opportunity to be part of that community. So I'm sorry to get off on a tangent on the communities, but you guys, they're coming. I know they're not coming fast enough. Trust me, I know. I've been saying it for like 10 years. They're not coming fast enough. But now with these new laws and with the flex zoning, we're going to start seeing more of them pop up. We are. Matter of fact, I have a call on Friday. I want to do one for ladies, and I'm working with a company that does developments, and even I want to try to help with a development for, women, right? And just communities in general, right? We don't have to have just tailored towards, homelessness or affordable living or just women or just youth or just veterans, right? We also just want tiny house communities. That's it.
I agree. Actually, we have Gwen Rubio's in the Go Tiny Academy, and she's a developer out of Michigan that also came and stood right where you are sitting right there and was guiding people through your tiny home and helping educate. And that's the beauty of so many people that are here. I feel like if you're someone that's a go-getter, this is why I have that at the very top of my academy. This is not as simple as just going in a store, buying a shirt and walking out, right? It's even simpler to buy a regular piece of real estate than to do this work. Would you not agree, Tracy?
Oh my gosh, it's hard, you guys. Yeah, it's hard. And one of the things that I didn't touch on, and maybe Lindsay, we need to do like a follow-up now that Colorado's putting some resources out there. But what I didn't touch on is, and I'm gonna slightly touch on it a little bit, Lindsay, but we need to probably talk about this. So the state of Colorado is going to allow you guys to turn in your MSO, which is your certificate of origin for your tiny house on wheels. They're going to let you turn it into the state and get a certificate of occupancy for your house if you're planning on putting it on land. And when you do that, you're going to take your tiny house from being considered an RV or personal property to what we consider real property, which means it has a less tax rate, but it allows your land and your home to increase in value versus like an RV that decreases in value on average 20% per year.
Oh my
So,
God.
So this is supposed to be the positive, right, with the state of Colorado. And trust me, you guys, I know, I'm not sure, right? I don't know yet. For some people, it's going to work beautifully because some people are planning on putting it on land and they want their value of their home to appreciate more. Okay. And that's going to work out great for them. But there's some people like, let's say myself, who are keeping license plate on mine. I have license plates on this tiny house because I want to be able to be mobile. Right. And so I don't want to pay taxes as real property for when I park it on my land 6 months out of the year. And I don't want to have to keep paying the DMV my taxes per year on my license plate renewals because I want to be mobile part of the year. So I'm not saying that what the state is got going on right now is perfect, but they're aware of some of the things that we're about to experience. And we have the attention of the tax people, because the one thing I have been fighting for is to make sure we don't get double taxed. I don't want to be double taxed, and I don't want my customers to be double taxed, right? So I appreciate the opportunity to get a certificate of occupancy for my tiny house, which is a beautiful thing. But also we know that the state of Colorado is going to have to be flexible with you guys as we figure out how these rules are applying towards different people, whether they're going to ever be mobile again, whether they just plan on parking it on land and staying there forever. If you just plan on parking it on land and putting it on your own land and you just want it for on wheels because if you ever need to move it, I totally respect it. I get it. It's fine. But you're probably going to want to get a certificate of occupancy at that point because it's going to benefit you. And some people won't. Some people just want to pay the DMV for a license plate.
How many of you want it permanent or on wheels because you know you're going to move it? Just write move or permanent in the chat, just out of curiosity, because these are realities, and many people didn't even know about real property versus, the
personal
property. Exactly. Think of personal property, boats, cars, RVs, hence the tiny home fitting into that, because we've been building to the RV standard. And now, after so many years of this festival is happening in Colorado, we're talking, what was it, like 2014 or 2015 when they started?
I don't know. Austin started in like 2014. I think I started in 2016, and I know that they were already working on things before I came into the industry.
Yeah. And one thing I heard from, the stories that be is that the state looked around and said, there's all these homes going on. Meanwhile, there's factory built housing that's built to certification and standards. There's manufactured home housing that's built to a HUD standard. Why wouldn't tiny homes also be built to a certain standard? So then, and I'm simplifying that. Does that fit to what you've kind of heard, Tracy, that there was definitely this look at the state and saying, we can't have all these tiny homes built to a RV standard rolling along the countryside. We need a little bit more regulation.
Yeah, it goes back to, wanting to regulate it to make sure that consumers were protected, right? So we're protecting people that are buying houses, right? Because again, there's always going to be a bad apple in every bunch. And unfortunately, we had a few bad apples in the state. So I'm okay with that. But ultimately, yeah, it's hard, right? You got NFPA 1192 RV code, but in the state of Colorado, you're not allowed to live in an RV. You can't live in an RV full time, period. And in most states, you can't. You can stay in them for 2 weeks. You can stay in them for sometimes, 180 days at the very most. That's if you got a great piece of land in Colorado that allowed you to stay for 6 months. But that's very far and few in between. Show me the land. It's not out there. You know what I mean? It's just not, you don't find that kind of land anymore. So yes, people live in RV parks all the time because we're allowed to live in RV parks, right? That's where we were accepted. But now this new law is going to allow you to live in a tiny home on wheels, on land, without having to have a main house. That's what this law does. You used to not be able to do that. You used to have a main house and then tie it into the main house if you were allowed an ADU and if you were allowed to meet all of the rules, which was extremely difficult. So it was almost impossible, right? There was only very few in between that ever accomplished it. And it was only because of the particular piece of land that they owned.
Can you say that one more time? Because in California, where I'm from, and we've got 16 jurisdictions that have amended their accessory dwelling unit ordinance and allow wheels to be a part of that. It did not change the certificate of occupancy and all the things that Tracy is talking about. By no means did we go at a state level in California. We just sort of amended an ADU law. In some cases, like Santa Cruz and Placer, they said it could be a primary residence. But can you repeat the primary residence? Because I hear a lot of people, I want to buy land and put
Yeah.
a home on it.
So in the majority of areas in the state of Colorado, you cannot find land that would allow you to put a tiny home on it by itself. So even though Colorado adopted Appendix Q, right, which were for tiny houses for foundation, the state of Colorado wondered why they got no applications. And it was because none of us wanted to build on foundation. If we wanted to build on foundation, then we would have followed Appendix Q. We all wanted to build on wheels, and that's what our customers wanted. And Appendix Q didn't answer for our wheels. So the state did nothing for us, right? Appendix Q was for small homes on foundation. And so as soon as they found out you were on wheels, they again wouldn't have anything to do with us. And so this particular code is specifically for tiny homes on wheels. And if you have a piece of land in Colorado and you are allowed to put something under, let's say, because if you're in an HOA, they're going to dictate 650 minimum square feet or 800 square feet. If you're in an HOA, they're going to dictate minimum square footage. Okay. And that's where a lot of land isn't good for tiny houses, right? You have to be buying a piece of land that doesn't have a minimum square footage that's dictated. Now, here in Colorado, we were starting to be allowed to put ADUs in some areas, but the rules in Colorado for ADUs was like 650 square feet.
I just found that important, 500 square feet.
Yeah, right. And so then it was like, well, wait a second, I'm never going to hit that. So then we had to start manipulating and figuring out a way around it. So now we're like, oh, okay, I'll build a 40-foot by 10-foot tiny house, which is 400 square feet. And then I'll build 200 square feet of wraparound enclosed porch to meet Colorado's 650 minimum square feet. And it was like, you know, I kept telling the state of Colorado as we're writing these laws, I don't want to feel like I'm manipulating anymore. I don't want to figure out ways. I don't want to teach people ways to place a tiny house legally. Make it legal. You know, we're done with this, right? Like we don't want to go through this anymore. And so, yes, the new laws are actually letting you put a tiny house on a piece of land as long as the land dictates it, that you're allowed to put the tiny house there.
So building standards and zoning law.
So go call your zoning official. That's who's in charge. If you call me and say, Tracy, can I put my tiny house here legally? I'm gonna say, what did zoning say? Does your land dictate and allow for it? If you could tell me, hey, yeah, Tracy, they said I could put a tiny house, you and I are in business. Okay, we're good to go. But if they're like, yeah, they said I could put a tiny house, but I have to have a minimum of 650 square feet, then it's like, okay, you can have a 400 square foot tiny house and you're getting a wraparound deck.
I love that deck thing. I'm down with the deck thing, if that's possible. See, there are finagling ways. And usually when people have a tiny home, they actually want to have a deck anyway.
I agree with you, Brad. Brad said that with the new laws, it's making this a little bit easier for everybody. And he's right. He's right about that. That's what my experience is so far. So yeah. Where's his little chat at? Where's it at?
Brad, for being here, because you have been behind the scenes. People don't know Brad Wiseman is with the Tiny Home Industry Association. He's the chairman of the board. And I'm going to put in the link for Thea, because Thea is very big. I mean, Dan Fitzpatrick has been chatting with you, right, Tracy? Over the years.
Oh, yeah, like I work, we're on the Thea team as far as industry association, and we work with these guys. And Brad and I actually did a lot of one-on-one work when we were writing the new laws for Colorado.
Well, there's the link, $25. Your support is very helpful, because It's a volunteer run organization, and we really need the support to grow the industry. We've gotten some big wins. Before Colorado passed, we really kind of looked at LA and San Diego and those kind of cities, but now the entire state of Colorado and the state of Maine do allow movable tiny homes. So those two states were not even around. In fact, when I came into the industry, I think the city of Fresno was the very first one to talk about any tiny friendly laws. So thank you to the THEA organization. We say THEA for short. All right, Tracy. Well, any last questions, people? This is the moment. Put them in there.
I can't find my chat anymore, Lindsay. Otherwise, I would try to help answer some of the questions.
So Brad says, Tracy and I spent at least 40 hours in meetings for this effort, and neither of us will get that back. So big shout out to Tracy and Brad for all the behind the scenes and other people that you aren't even named here. I mean, we mentioned Dan Patrick, other builders like Byron with Simplicity Homes.
Yes.
You know of others that are very much in the trenches. We want to thank them.
And it's kind of like the way I started out this call, right? It's everybody moving in the right direction with each other that is making the state start listening. They're listening because they don't have a choice, you guys. They don't have a choice because we have an affordable living problem. And people are struggling. And so the states are now being taxed with looking for affordable living alternatives. So, and one of those alternatives, and it's not going to answer all their questions because they're so far behind, is tiny houses. So this is a step in the right direction. We didn't get it perfect. Again, I have a couple of things that I'm not happy about, but I'm not going to stop. We're going to go ahead and take this next year to do some temperature checks along the way. Figure out the 2 or 3 things. I think there's 2 things that I just really want to see fixed. And it'll make it a lot easier for everybody. And zoning is coming.
Other than building, like someone asking you to build their home, you also do consulting, right?
We
Because I
do.
just had a question from someone that bought a trailer and now they're finishing it. There's probably people mid build and working with other builders that they're thinking about. So how can they reach out?
You guys, thank you, Lindsay. We're not very good at selling ourselves, so I appreciate you for that. Here's the deal, you guys. You're welcome to go out onto our website and schedule a consult call with us. We do them complimentary. We'll answer questions, and if we don't know the answer, we'll help you figure it out. So if you have a very specific question about zoning, it's going to take a little bit of work. You're not going to get the answer immediately. It might take a couple of weeks for us to help you get the answer, but we'll help you through the process. And now that the state is on board, things are changing as far as time, like Marianne, I think it's the perfect time for you, right? Because of these new laws that just went into effect, it's starting to change things as far as speeding things up for people. So you can book a consult call on our website. We also do small business consulting for builders. Austin and I started out, we have our own history on, why we started our company. But one of the things that we decided to do as a company was to help other people. And we want to help our industry. So the more builders out there that are following the laws and they're doing right by their customers, the better it makes our lives too. When builders don't do the right things and they don't follow the rules, they make it harder for us. Okay. They make it harder for us to help you guys. And I don't want it to any harder than it has to be. So we will help small businesses. We will help builders. We will offer you a free consultation at some point. When we're in deep, of course, there's going to be costs, right? There's only so much we can do for free before there has to be some sort of consulting fees. We're pretty fair. We've had multiple success stories from other builders that have hired us for consulting, whether they were starting up their own tiny house business and they wanted to speed up their own learning curve. We have gone in there and helped other businesses be successful quickly. And we do have business references for that. But we do a lot of work with individual people. So handful of businesses. I was with TrailerMade for 4.5 years. I'm not with TrailerMade right now, but I still buy their trailers and I still support them. I'm more focused on with the new laws with the state of Colorado. I'm just a little bit more focused on trying to make some things happen for us here at the state level. And my attention is here. And so that's kind of cool. It allows me to put more focus on tiny building experts, local Colorado customers, and I want to get some tiny houses placed in the city, in your backyard, Mariana, in my backyard, right? No, seriously, your neighbors and Austin wants me to start the process to getting what you're starting. I'm going to start doing for our house too, because I'm okay with putting my tiny house in my third driveway and allowing somebody to rent it. I'm okay with that, right? Like if I can give somebody somewhere to live affordably, I'm okay with that, right? And that's kind of what our goals are right now. So I'm kind of excited now that I feel pressure from everybody, that because now that the new laws are here, I'm like, oh, now we're all ready. Everybody's ready now. So I am kind of excited, and I think we're going to be busy for the next probably about good month hammering a lot of it out. But I think some good things are about to happen. Lindsay, we should do a temperature check on Colorado in like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, what do you guys
Seriously, so
say?
that we can share some of the successes with everybody, because I think that'll be important for a
Yes.
lot of these people.
We already had that vision. So who here would be interested in a temperature check 2 to 3 months out from now? Put yes in the chat, because it will really help us understand, you know, are we liking this? Do we need more of this? I mean, we know because we go to the shows and we get these questions all the time. And I want to wrap it up with this very important point that I think you're going to love, Tracy. And it's what Brad just put in the chat. And Brad, you're right on. Colorado tiny home law and the associated regulations are likely to spread to other states with similar governments that deal with building codes, inspections, and approvals at the local level instead of the state level. So what's happened in Colorado, those of us in the industry were like, oh, Colorado, eyes on Colorado, because then guess what happens to ordinances and other governments picking stuff up? This will spread.
Yeah, everybody's going to start following suit, because it already happened, right? Washington was, in my opinion, the very first state that started to pave the way. It was difficult, and I think we learned from some of the difficulties. I think California did a better job. I think Thea was behind California doing a better job.
Yes.
I believe that. I really do.
And Brad and everyone.
I do. And I feel like, I feel like having support from the industry associations, and we got support from everybody here in Colorado. So I was pretty happy for that. But I think that is paving the way for the other states. They're going to start following suit. They're going to copy and paste what we're doing, and they're going to implement it into their states. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yep. And I'm working here in Arizona, brand new state for me. And we've got the local Prescott Valley people. They just did an 8-month task force on housing. Guess what the results were? We don't have enough was the bottom line. And because they're in an area where people come up from the valley and they want to take over and build bigger homes and all those kind of things, the people that are the baristas, the teachers, the firemen, you name it, just don't have as much income level to be able to buy the homes, or even if there are enough available. So that's happening here. I talk to people all over the country. Even saw something get approved in a city of 4,000 people in Wisconsin. So housing crisis is everywhere. Some places more acute for longer times, and other places maybe it's just now coming.
Yeah, I'll say it like this, even though we're in a hard area right now as an industry with the cost of materials, labor's rough, materials are rough, the industry's struggling because of interest rates and, banking loans and things like that. This industry is not going anywhere. And the state of Colorado, I think in the next year or two is really going to change when it comes to affordable living. And I think the tiny house communities, and you're going to see tiny houses in backyards here soon.
Yes, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tracy. I'm going to put her her website in the chat again, because go and reach out to her. Your time is valuable and your knowledge is amazing, because you've been in the trenches on the front lines working with so many people, with your clients and all of us in mind. I feel that from you when you like think about and doing all the work. It's not just Tracy and your own company. And I met Austin as well, your husband, and this couple is like for the community. So thank you.
So here's the beauty thing, and this is why I also think we need to talk about, about a follow-up, because we need to talk about taxes. We need to talk about the certificate of occupancy, the real property versus personal property, right? RV versus tiny home on chassis. And then the other thing that we need to talk about is exactly this. So when you get a certificate of occupancy, you can apply for a mortgage loan.
Which is better interest rate, better terms,
It's
all
literally
around.
calling me. This on that list, Linz, and let's get some answers to them. The answer is yes. This is supposed to open up more lending opportunities.
Cool. Awesome.
I'm trying to work with banks that will open up that lending. So we're going to see how it goes. If you are a banker, if you are a loan specialist, if you want to reach out to me and you think your bank wants to do this, I do meet with banks. I take them through the process. I've worked with other banks that can come in and tour the facility, see how the houses are built, look at the collateral, look at the inspection process. I'm always looking for banks. And so, yes, I have a couple of banks that are saying that they're going to be able to give better loans. So we'll see, you guys.
Exciting. Okay.
That's actually a big deal.
Yeah.
It's actually a super big deal, Lynn. So we need to have a follow-up on this.
The land, the finance, and the build. So anyone have final questions? Because Tracy's got to go make dinner. Or have dinner.
Apparently I have a starving 14-year-old.
Awesome. All right, you guys, we're going to finally do it. We're going to say goodbye, even though obviously this is a hot topic.
I appreciate you guys. My email's just Tracy, Tracy at Tiny Building Experts. We are in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You can reach us on our website, schedule a consult call, or feel free to give us a call as well. Our phone number is 719-789-0005. So yeah, let us know how we can support you guys. We'd love to build you a beautiful tiny house. And if that's not the path and you need some help in some other ways, we do shells for people as well. We help DIYers and we help people get their tiny houses placed. So let us know how we can help you. We'd love to support you guys. And thanks, Lindsay, for inviting our company to do this with you. We appreciate the opportunity and we appreciate Thea's support and everybody else's support as well.